So I have a scene here, and this is in Eevee. The settings for Eevee, I have turned on screen space reflections and refraction. And then also for my materials, I have turned on screen space refraction down here at the bottom. So this is all set up to have glass, or in this case, diamond crystal. And so what I've created is just a basic ring with a reflective material. And you can see that it looks a lot like crystal or diamond. And this looks a lot like gold or some kind of alloy. But if I go to render view, so I'm in material preview mode right now, but if I go into render, notice that it doesn't look so good anymore. And if I render my scene, it just looks pretty crummy. And the first thing people will try to do is fix it by just adding some lights. But that is not going to fix the problem. I can add a lot of light, and it's not going to solve all of my issues. So for instance, I have one light in the scene already, and I'm just going to duplicate it a few times. But I'll increase the brightness. Now let's set it to 20,000 even. Okay, so very bright. And I'll move that over and I'll duplicate it and I'll duplicate it again and I'll duplicate it again and then I'll render again. And you see that, okay, it's starting to look a little better, but it just doesn't look right. And the reason for that is because glass really depends, and so does metal for that matter, depends on the things around it, because metal reflects the things around it and glass refracts the things behind it. And so uh, this just isn't going to look realistic unless we have something for them to work with. But we don't want to spend the time to model the whole scene. So what we're going to do is use an HDRI, a high dynamic range image. And so I'm going to go over to Google and I'm going to type in HDRI Haven. And that is a website that has a bunch of environmental images in HDRI format. And so I'll go to their website, I'll find the HDRIs, and I'm just going to decide what environment do I want this ring to be in. And I probably want it to be in an indoor environment, and maybe I'll just use this comfy cafe. So I'll click on Comfy Cafe and you'll see that this image is all of the lines are bent and sweeping, and what it is it's an image that is in 360-degree format. So what will happen is I'll load this in and it'll be like I'm right inside this room. So let's download a copy of this, and you'll notice there's different resolutions. If you're only doing lighting, 1K or 2K is probably sufficient. If you actually want it to look good, you probably want to go 8K or 16K, and I'm going to go ahead and do the 8K version. So let me download that. It's going to take just a moment to download, and once it's downloaded, I'm going to load that picture in as an environment texture for the Blender world. So I'm going to go to the World tab over here. And notice right now it's set as a color, and I could change that color. So notice I can change the background color, but I don't want it to be a solid color. I actually want it to be that picture I just downloaded. So I'm going to click on the little yellow circle, and I'm going to choose the environment texture option. And notice it turns magenta because there's no image loaded yet. And I'll open the image that I just downloaded. So downloads, and I'll find that comfy cafe picture. And I'll open that image. It's going to take just a moment for it to load that. And then all of a sudden, we're in the comfy cafe. And you'll notice that this looks a lot more realistic now. If I was to render this, notice that it actually has some realism to it now because it has stuff to work with. So the glass has something to refract and the metal has something to reflect. That's not just a solid color. And that is the process of adding in an HDRI to use as a background. If you don't want this environment to show up in your scene, though, you can go to the render settings, find the film option, and then turn on transparent. And notice that you get rid of the background image, but you still have all of the positive lighting effects. And so when I render this, there is my ring. It looks good, and I don't have the background. And I could put it into over any background I wanted to at this point. So that is just a quick summary on how to make glass and metal look good quickly.